Okay, so I've got this idea for a prequel to Nosferatu or Dracula, whatever it is. I kind of want to go with Nosferatu because maybe there'd be fewer characters. I don't know, but anyway, most of the movies I've seen, I'll admit I've never actually read the book, but most of the movies I've seen, they don't really talk about why Dracula was in a hurry to get out of Transylvania and move to England, and it just sort of hit me one day. Maybe he had been found out, like he's the count, but he's not the king of his country, and so basically I came up with this idea: a court clerk, in some king someplace in Transylvania. He comes on to this. He says they haven't actually had a representative from Orloc's court in a long time, and he concludes that either there's an imposter in the House of Orlock, or that Mr. Orlock is over 100 years old, and of course he considers it illogical that Orlock would be 100 years old. So he gets permission to go investigate, and he's never seen or heard from again. And a little bit later, uh, an army captain in this royal guard who's done a lot of overseas stuff happens to uh, get the assignment of finding out what happened to this clerk who is investigating this one count that uh, hasn't been seen or heard from, but somehow is still on the public tills and whatnot. And so uh, I want him to be an old guy. I want him to be somebody who's interested in learning foreign languages. I want there to be some sort of a backstory where he and Van Helsing pretty much come from the same part of the country, or same small town, which also happens to be under Count Orlok's jurisdiction. Uh, Maybe play with the names a little bit for legal reasons, and basically he's getting close to retirement, wants to do some domestic policing work, but he's been around. He likes to be prepared. Uh, he so he takes on a clergyman because something inspired by the Lois and Clark expedition, the only fatality of the Lois and Clark expedition, and basically I want something similar to that, where the guy asked for last rites and the captain couldn't give it to him, so uh, he now likes to get a clergyman everywhere he goes, or every time he's sent out on a mission. And there's a clergyman who's interested in going to the land of the phantoms because he believes he can dispel the local legends about the uh, being terrified of this this thing which he says doesn't exist, but the captain who comes from there is trying to tell him that uh, maybe what he really needs to do is not tell them not to believe in the clergyman wants to tell the locals not to believe in evil, but the captain is suggesting maybe instead of not believing in evil, they should believe in good, and that that the clergyman has certain powers at his disposal and whatnot. And of course, there's always the whole thing about them living in enlightened times. It's the idea of somebody being 100 years old and a vampire that is pretty preposterous. That tends to pop up in a lot of movies about Dracula or Orlok or whatever. And anyway, I want there to be a disagreement between the captain and the priest, and the captain ends up ordering the priest to bless his troops' bullets. He and his platoon go to investigate what happened to this clerk, and then they get to Orlok's house, and they end up noticing that he's getting newspapers from foreign countries to looking over the classifieds and whatnot. For obvious reasons, Orlok knows that it's just a matter of time before he gets caught, so he's gonna have to leave the country. But he's still in a position where he can take out this platoon, or so he thinks. But they happen to bring a clergyman with them. The captain happens to be a righteous and holy man, and also happens to be from the area, born and raised, so he knows a thing or two about what the vampire is capable of, what it does. In that film from the 1920s about Nosferatu, this little pamphlet this guy picks up in a hotel that tells all sorts of signs to watch for and whatnot, and the captain already knows to look for all this stuff. He's also a fan of medical reference guides, so he in particular ones in English that happen to be from Van Helsing. And like I said, I'd have to mess with the names a little bit, but I really don't have much to go on. It's just that they'd go to the castle, find out that things really aren't square, and that the captain and his small band of troops have to bust out of the castle because they can't take on the whole vampire. At one point, I want the captain in a fit of desperation to take his knife and start making cross-point bullets just for fun. And they have to survive a night or two in the countryside and keep their wits about them while this thing is stalking them and so on and so forth. And anyway, that's pretty much my idea for a prequel to the vampire mythos of Dracula or Orlok. And I'm absolutely Al, and peace out.